In the year 614 AD, the civilized world was preparing for a funeral. The Roman Empire, not the ancient Rome of the Caesars, but its surviving golden heart in the east, Byzantium, was finally breaking. For decades, the Sasanian Persian Empire, led by the relentless King Khosrow II, had been a storm that wouldn't break. They weren't just winning battles, they were erasing the Roman identity. Syria had collapsed. Egypt, the breadbasket of the empire, was severed. Anatolia was a graveyard of scorched earth. Then came the moment that broke the Roman spirit. Jerusalem fell. The Persians didn't just take the city, they seized the true cross, the holiest relic in Christendom, and hauled it back to Persia as a trophy of war. To the people of Constantinople, this wasn't just a military defeat, it was a sign from the heavens. The empire was bankrupt, the treasury was empty, and the army was a shattered collection of terrified recruits. The map was shrinking, and the end felt inevitable. On the throne sat a man many believed was a placeholder for a dying dynasty, Emperor Heraclius. His advisors were paralyzed by fear. Some begged him to negotiate a humiliating peace. Others, in a fit of desperation, suggested abandoning Constantinople entirely and fleeing to Carthage in North Africa. But Heraclius did something that sounded like a death wish. He looked at the ruins of his empire and decided that he was done defending. He didn't just rebuild the army, he fundamentally changed what it meant to be a Roman soldier. He stripped the churches of their gold, not to pay off the Persians, but to fund a desperate, final gamble. He turned the war into a crusade, a struggle for the very soul of the empire. Then, in 622 AD, while the Persian armies were literally visible from the walls of his capital, Heraclius didn't stay to man the ramparts. He did the unthinkable. He boarded his ships and sailed away, disappearing into the Black Sea. He left his capital vulnerable to strike at the enemy's heart. This was a move of pure, calculated insanity. For years, Heraclius became a ghost in the mountains of the Caucasus and the Armenian highlands. He spent his winters in the freezing wild, training his men to fight in conditions the Persians avoided. He didn't seek out massive, honorable battles. Instead, he became a predator of logistics. He moved like lightning, cutting supply lines, burning Persian palaces, and vanishing back into the fog before their heavy cavalry could respond. While King Khosrow sat in his luxury, dismissing Heraclius as a desperate nomad, the Roman emperor was actually performing a slow-motion decapitation of the Persian state. He was forcing the Persians to pull troops from the Roman borders back into their own territory. He was no longer the prey, he was the hunter. The climax of this decade-long gamble arrived in 627 AD, near the ruins of ancient Nineveh. The conditions were hellish. It was December, the air was biting, and Heraclius was deep, dangerously deep, in enemy territory. He was outnumbered and cut off from any hope of retreat. But Heraclius knew something the Persians didn't. A cornered animal is the most dangerous thing in the world. In the heat of the battle, as the lines blurred into a chaotic mass of steel and blood, the emperor did something no Roman leader had done in centuries. He didn't watch from a hill. He charged. Legends say Heraclius personally engaged the Persian general in single combat, beheading him in full view of both armies. Whether it was divine intervention or pure Roman grit, the unstoppable Sasanian line shattered. The Persian army didn't just retreat, it evaporated. The shockwave of Nineveh was more lethal than the battle itself. The Persian elite realized their god King Khosrow had led them into a catastrophe. Within months, the Persian Empire imploded from the inside. Khosrow was overthrown by his own son, dragged into a dungeon, and executed. The mighty Sasanian Empire, which had spent 20 years trying to wipe Rome off the map, was suddenly begging for a peace treaty. In 629 AD, the impossible happened. Heraclius marched back into Jerusalem. He wasn't a broken refugee, he was the savior of the West. On his own shoulders, he carried the true cross back into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. He had taken a civilization that was 5 minutes from total extinction and forced history to change its course. He had reversed 20 years of loss in 1 decade of brilliant, suicidal offense. But history is a cruel narrator. The tragedy of Heraclius is that his victory was so complete, it left both empires exhausted. As he celebrated in Jerusalem, a new power was rising in the deserts of the south. The Arab conquests were about to begin. The Romans and Persians had bled each other white, leaving the door open for a new world to be born. Yet, the lesson of Heraclius remains. This wasn't a story of luck or a miracle of fate. It was a masterclass in strategic resilience. It is the story of a leader who realized that when your back is against the wall, the only way out is through. He chose risk over surrender and marched 1,000 miles into the dark just to prove that an empire that refuses to die can never truly be conquered.